wasn't able to win that same way because she started to play more aggressive, go for her shots a little bit more. So I wasn't too disappointed in myself. I just wish I made the adjustment a little bit quicker. Maybe it would have saved a little bit of future gray hairs or something.
Coco Gauff just said something that nobody expected to hear from a two-time Grand Slam champion after a loss. She called Alex Eala the best player at Indian Wells. Not one of the best. Not impressive for her age. The best. Full stop. And when you hear everything she said, and everything the people around this tournament have been saying, it starts to feel less like a compliment and more like a warning. After everything you're about to hear and already heard, do you think Alex Eala wins this tournament? Drop your prediction in the comments right now. Let's get into it. Here's what people forget about this match. Coco Gauff won the first 2 games of the first set. She was composed, she was in control, she looked exactly like the player who had just beaten Eala comprehensively in Dubai 2 weeks earlier. The crowd probably settled in expecting more of the same. That's not what they got.
Yeah, I was pretty positive. I felt like I was playing good, and then I felt she stepped up her level for sure.
From that point forward, Eala won 6 straight games and took the first set 6-2. 6 consecutive games against the world number 4 on Stadium 1 at Indian Wells. The scoreline in Dubai was 6-0. The scoreline here was 6-2, except this time it was Eala on the right side of it. The second set continued in the same direction. Eala broke immediately and was 2 games up before Gauff made the decision to retire due to injury. The match lasted 55 minutes. In those 55 minutes, Eala had been so dominant that the retirement, when it came, almost felt like a formality. And the numbers back that up completely. Eala made 68% of her first serves. She won 59% of points on that first serve. She created 6 breakpoint opportunities and converted 5 of them. Against a Grand Slam champion. Those aren't the stats of someone who got fortunate. Those are the stats of a player who came in with a plan, executed it point by point, and never let Gauff find a foothold. Now here's what made Gauff's post-match press conference so striking. She didn't deflect to the injury. She didn't explain away what had just happened by pointing to her shoulder or her arm. She sat down and gave a specific, honest answer about why Eala won. And in doing so, she said something that the tennis world is still processing.
Yeah, I mean, it's really physical here because the courts are so slow and the points are a little bit longer, and it's hard for me to hit a winner.
She said the courts at Indian Wells are slow. Slow courts mean longer points. Longer points mean physical endurance matters more, transition matters more, and the ability to deal with awkward balls from uncomfortable positions matters more. And then she said Eala was the best in those conditions. Not competitive, not well-suited, the best. She talked about Eala's quickness getting back into position after every single shot, her ability to absorb pace and redirect it, her comfort in long, grinding rallies where most players eventually give something away. Gauff was essentially describing a player who had been specifically built for the conditions of that tournament, and who had just used those conditions to take apart the world number 4. She also said something more personal. She said she wasn't too disappointed in herself, but she wished she had made the adjustment faster, because she saw what was happening. She recognized the shift in the match. She just couldn't stop it in time. That admission from Gauff means something. This is not a player who loses often and who makes excuses when she does. When Coco Gauff sits in a press conference and says she couldn't keep pace with someone's level and means it without caveats, that tells you something real about what Eala was doing on that court. For context on how unusual this situation is, before the tournament started, former American pro Sam Querrey made a prediction that raised eyebrows at the time. He said Alex Eala was going to be bigger than Coco Gauff and Aryna Sabalenka. Not eventually, in the near future.
Is she the biggest draw in women's tennis right now in the world?
Yes.
Is she big? Is she bigger than Sabalenka? Is she bigger than Coco? Is she the biggest draw in women's tennis in the world?
Dude, it's crazy.
Yes,
she's having the same effect that Fonseca was having, like on the men's side last year in Miami.
Nuts.
At the time, that felt like a strong take from someone who wanted to make headlines. After the Indian Wells third round, it feels considerably more grounded. Querrey also pointed to something that goes beyond results. He said Eala's first match at Indian Wells generated over $5 million in ticket sales, a new attendance record for the tournament.
The people are pouring on. It's like the news is just getting bigger and bigger. Whatever tournament she's in, I'm assuming it's like the Filipino community from wherever they are in that part of the world are just like have to see her.
For a player who hadn't yet broken into the top 20 at the time, that kind of commercial gravity is extraordinary. It means people aren't just watching her because she's winning. They were showing up before a single ball was struck because they already knew what an Eala match feels like. Query summed it up by saying Eala is having the same effect on women's tennis that Carlos Alcaraz had on the men's side at Miami the year before. And then he said, it might actually be bigger. That's not a casual comparison. Alcaraz turned that tournament into an event. If Eala is doing the same thing on the women's side, at Indian Wells, the implications go well beyond one player's ranking trajectory. Jessica Pegula said something similar, and hers carried a different kind of weight because she said it as someone who had been on the other side of that atmosphere.
It's amazing. I mean, I played her when she kind of broke out last year in Miami, and you know, I'm from there, and the whole crowd was against me, and I was like, what on earth is going on? Like, where do these people come from? And then week after week, as she, you know, has done well and established herself as a really good player on tour, they all come out to support her. And so I think we saw that in Australia when it was kind of overcrowded. They put her on too small of a court. We saw it here. You can hear it from the hotel. You can hear the crowd roaring, especially at night. So it's incredible.
Pegula talked about the crowd size, the noise, the energy, and said she was taken back by the experience of playing in that environment. She described it as insane. She said you genuinely want to tune into Eala's matches just to see what it's like on the court. And she pointed out, almost as an aside, that the attention Eala is drawing is something the other players are very aware of. That last part is worth sitting with. The other players are noticing. Not just the fans, not just the broadcasters, not just the tournament directors calculating ticket revenue. The players themselves are watching what's happening around Eala's matches and acknowledging it openly. That's a different level of recognition. That's your peers telling you that you've changed the room. But here's what gets lost when the conversation shifts to star power and attendance records. The tennis itself is the reason any of this is happening. The attention isn't manufactured. There is no campaign behind it, no carefully constructed public image, no management team engineering moments for social media. People are showing up because the tennis is worth showing up for.
I really didn't want to win this way, but this is still a really big moment for me to be able to play on Stadium 1 of Indian Wells and against such a great competitor. I'm really grateful to be here and I'm super happy. Yeah.
With the win over Gauff, Eala has now beaten 3 top 10 players in the world. She has not yet cracked the top 20 herself. That gap between where her ranking sits and the caliber of opposition she's already defeating is one of the clearest indicators of how fast she is actually moving. Rankings are a lagging measure. They reflect what you've already done. What Eala is doing right now, in real time, is already ahead of where the numbers say she should be. And the way she handled the press conference only reinforced it. When asked about the retirement, she didn't celebrate and she didn't deflect. She said clearly that nobody likes winning that way and nobody likes losing that way. She acknowledged it, held it with the right amount of weight, and moved forward. She was explicit that her happiness came from how she played, not just from the result being in her column. She said she hoped to carry the momentum from her own performance, independent of the circumstances that ended the match. That distinction is not a small one. It's easy to say a win is a win. It's much harder and much more revealing to say what I'm carrying forward is the quality of my tennis, not just the scoreline. Eala said the second thing, at 20 years old, after one of the biggest wins of her career, in a room full of cameras and reporters, without hesitating. There's also something important to be said about what Gauff's comments reveal about the trajectory of this rivalry specifically. Because these two players have now met twice in the span of 2 weeks, and the results could not have been more different. In Dubai, Gauff won 6-0, 6-2. A complete performance, dominant from first game to last. Eala had almost no answers. In Indian Wells, before the retirement, Eala was on course for something close to the mirror image of that result. The player who had been shut out 2 weeks earlier came back and produced one of the most statistically dominant performances of the entire season against the same opponent on the same surface category. That kind of swing tells you that neither player has fully figured the other one out yet. The head-to-head sits at 1-1, and both results have been lopsided in completely opposite directions, which means every future meeting between them is genuinely unpredictable in the best possible way. The established champion and the rising challenger, neither one able to say they have the other's number, both talented enough to produce brilliant tennis on any given day. That is exactly the foundation of a rivalry worth following for years. Gauff seems to understand this too. She wasn't dismissive after the loss. She wasn't looking for reasons to contextualize it away. She gave Eala full credit, talked specifically about what made her so difficult to play in these conditions, and then added, almost as an aside, that she thought Eala was going to have a great tournament. Coming from the player she just beat on the same day the loss happened, that's not a throwaway line. That's a genuine assessment from someone who just spent an hour on the same court and felt the level firsthand. And then there's the historical dimension, the one that gives this entire run a different kind of significance depending on how it ends. No player in the Open era has won Indian Wells on their tournament debut. Not in the women's draw, not in the men's. It has never happened. The tournament is too deep, the draw too strong, the conditions too specific for a first-timer to navigate all of it without a single slip. Eala is already in the round of 16. She has beaten 3 top 10 players. She is playing the best tennis of her career on courts that, according to the world number 4, suit her better than anyone else in the field. The path is there. Whether she takes it is still to be decided. But the fact that the conversation is even happening, that a 20-year-old Filipino in her first Indian Wells is a legitimate contender for the title, says everything about where she is right now. If she wins this tournament, it won't just be a ranking milestone or a career highlight. It will be a moment that gets replayed for a long time. The debut, the 3 top 10 wins, the press conference where Coco Gauff called her the best player in the draw, the Filipino crowd turning Stadium 1 into something that felt like a home final. All of it building towards something that has never been done before. Coco Gauff didn't just lose a third-round match at Indian Wells. She walked into a press conference, told the truth about what she faced, and handed Alex Eala a declaration that carries more weight than any ranking or trophy could in this moment. The best player at Indian Wells. From the world number 4. In the week it happened. That's not consolation. That's not sportsmanship filler. That's an honest assessment from one of the best players in the world, and it lines up perfectly with everything we've watched over the past 2 weeks. The run is still alive. The story is still being written. And based on everything Gauff just said and everything Eala just showed, the most dangerous thing about her right now is that there's no sign she's anywhere close to her ceiling. If you're watching this happen in real time, hit like and subscribe. This is the kind of story you don't want to miss.